in a notoriously cutthroat industry where managers are routinely hired just to be fired, and where players often look at their coaches as just temporary bosses, Ancelotti does something entirely different. He doesn't just build a team. He builds deeply personal, lasting human connections. And to understand just how rare that is, we really only have to listen to some of the biggest stars in the history of the game.
I mean, think about Cristiano Ronaldo and a sensitive person who took the time to speak with the players every single day. He even openly admits, "I miss him a lot." Ancelotti completely disarms that rigid, competitive exterior and connects on a purely emotional level. He manages the human being first and the global superstar second.
And you see this emotional connection build even further with a legend like Andrea Pirlo. Now, this is a player famous for his cool, calm, almost icy detachment on the pitch. But his words here carry immense emotional weight. He doesn't just call him a great coach, he says Ancelotti was like a father to me. He credits Carlo with changing his role on the field, which is what actually unlocked his world-class potential, and describes their times together as indescribable. Just think about what it truly takes for a manager in high-stakes sports to earn the title of father from a player of that caliber. That is a level of trust that goes way, way beyond standard tactical instructions. That exact sentiment is echoed perfectly by Andriy Shevchenko, a legendary striker who actually won the Ballon d'Or under Ancelotti's guidance. It's a short statement, but man, is it powerful? For me, he was more than a coach. This is the recurring theme we keep seeing throughout the source material. When you treat your players like family, they don't just play for their paychecks. They will run through brick walls for you. David Beckham really hits the nail on the head here, highlighting the dual nature of Ancelotti's greatness, calling him one of the most incredible managers and people. Because with Carlo, you simply cannot separate the two. His empathy isn't some distraction from his strategy. His empathy literally is the foundation of his managerial strategy.
So, moving on to part 2, freedom and belief, the tactical psychologist. Because you might be wondering, how does all this trust actually translate onto the pitch? Well, there's a pretty common misconception out there that because Ancelotti is the nice guy, he must lack tactical rigor. But Thiago Silva completely dispels that myth. Ancelotti definitely has a clear football idea and a solid structure. But the real magic ingredient, he inherently trusts creativity. Silva points out that Carlo gives players the freedom to express themselves. In an era where so many managers overcoach and lock their squads into these rigid, almost robotic systems, Ancelotti builds a rock-solid foundation, and then he just steps back and trusts his world-class talents to paint the canvas. It's this perfect, seamless blend of structural discipline and individual freedom.
And this belief system doesn't just win games, it turns players into future leaders. Take Zinedine Zidane, arguably one of the greatest players ever, but he actually learned his managerial trade acting as Ancelotti's assistant. Carlo told him that winning as a coach is even more beautiful and difficult than winning as a player. Zidane absorbed that wisdom, applied it, and went on to win 3 unprecedented consecutive Champions League titles himself. Ancelotti doesn't just manage people, he empowers them to become leaders in their own right.
To really grasp this level of psychological mastery, we have to look at this fascinating anecdote from 2007. So Ancelotti's AC Milan is gearing up for the Champions League final. It's literally the biggest game in club football. The tension is suffocating. Most managers would drown their striker in tactical data or inadvertently pile a mountain of pressure on them. But what does Ancelotti do with his star striker Filippo Inzaghi? He simply makes a promise.
The night before the final, Carlo looks Inzaghi dead in the eye and says, "You'll score 2 goals tomorrow." And what happened? Inzaghi goes out and scores exactly 2 goals, winning the most coveted trophy in Europe for Milan. Just pause and think about the sheer, unshakable confidence Ancelotti instilled in his player with that single sentence. He didn't frame it as a hope. He stated it as an absolute fact. That is the work of a master psychologist who knows exactly what his player needs to hear to unlock peak performance when the lights are at their absolute brightest.
Part 3. The manager's manager. Earning rival respect.
So, we've heard from the players, but to truly measure a manager's standing, we have to step outside the locker room and look at what his fiercest direct rivals say about him. And we are talking about monumental names here. Pep Guardiola, Sir Alex Ferguson, Ståle Solbakken. These aren't just TV pundits, folks. These are the absolute tactical titans of the sport. And they all universally bow to Ancelotti's greatness, giving him this undeniable cross-generational credibility.
Let's unpack Pep Guardiola's praise for a second.
Guardiola is a guy obsessed with systematic, micromanaged perfection, yet he repeatedly describes Ancelotti as one of the greatest managers in history, specifically pointing to his ability to adapt to different teams and players, and that right there is Ancelotti's superpower. While other elite managers demand that players fit perfectly into their specific, unyielding philosophy, Ancelotti is a tactical chameleon. He molds his entire system to fit the unique talents he happens to have at his disposal. He succeeds everywhere because he is universally adaptable.
And then, of course, there's Sir Alex Ferguson. Ancelotti himself has humbly stated that Ferguson is the only coach whose experience actually exceeds his own. Think about the gravity of that statement. When you're operating at a level where Sir Alex Ferguson, arguably the greatest British manager of all time, is your only true peer in terms of longevity and success, your place at the absolute pinnacle of football royalty is just unquestionable.
And to prove his enduring relevance even today, just look at Ståle Solbakk's recent remarks ahead of a potential matchup at the 2026 World Cup. He didn't just casually mention Ancelotti's past. He called him one of the greatest coaches in European history, specifically praising both his achievements and his character. Because with Carlo, it's never just about the trophies. The character always takes center stage. He commands the respect of the entire footballing ecosystem.
Part 4. A Legacy of Respect. The Final Whistle. Let's go ahead and pull all these threads together.
The absolutely crucial point to take away is this. Managers are usually remembered for their tactics. They're remembered for those cold, calculated systems they drew up on a whiteboard. But Carlo Ancelotti, he will be remembered for something far warmer. And honestly, something even rarer. He's going to be remembered for the deep, unwavering respect he earned from every single person he crossed paths with.
When you take a step back and look at the staggering chorus of voices we've explored today, from generational talents on the pitch to mastermind tacticians on the touchline, you realize something really profound. In a sport completely defined by fierce tribalism, intense rivalries, and monumental egos, there's absolute, universal agreement among the elite when it comes to one man. And this is the core takeaway. The elite don't just remember Carlo Ancelotti as a winner. I mean, yes, he obviously has the medals. Yes, he holds the records. But they remember him as a leader, a mentor, and one of the greatest people the game has ever known. His humanity is his ultimate legacy. He proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you do not have to sacrifice your character to achieve ultimate success.
Which brings us to our final thought. Whether you manage a team of athletes, a corporate department, or just interact with people in your daily life, this masterclass applies to all of us. Ancelotti shows us the true, lasting authority doesn't come from fear or micromanagement. It comes from connection and belief. So, we'll leave you with this. What kind of legacy are you building with the people you lead?